وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. You know, this beautiful recitation of our Imam here. Earlier today I was looking through this 18th juz of the Quran, trying to find an ayah, some ayat to talk about this evening. And it's such a beautiful juz, and all the ajza of the Quran are beautiful. It's a really hard selection. One of my favorite verses is one of the verses that we heard tonight. Very famous verse where Allah says, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the light of the heavens and the earth. Right after this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we heard it in the third rak'ah today, في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال. Meaning that this light that was mentioned in the previous verse shines through houses of worship, which Allah has ordered to be raised. And where His name is mentioned, He is glorified there morning and evening. And then Allah says, رِجَالٌ لَا تُلْهِيهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيْعٌ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه القلوب والأبصار. Allah says, by men who are not distracted either by buying or selling from Allah's remembrance or performing prayers or paying zakat, they fear a day when hearts and eyes will tremble. There's a lot to unpack in these verses. These verses teach us three very important things. The first is the honor of the masjid. The second is the qualities of the people of the masjid. And the third is the inner force that keeps them consistent, which is the fear of the day of resurrection. We can say Allah honors, this verse is saying Allah honors the masajid, and Allah honors the people who honor the masajid. That's a summary of these two verses. Tonight, as we stand in Taraweeh, these verses are brought to life. These verses are not abstract. We are literally inside the places Allah described. Literally, we are doing exactly this. بإذن الله تعالى. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. That light shines through houses of worship which Allah has ordered to be raised. You know, not every place is equal. Not every gathering is equal. Not every building is equal. There are places on earth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala singled out for His remembrance. There are spaces that are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the most beloved places to Allah are the masajid. So these verses are not speaking about some distant people from the past. These verses are talking about a way of life. These verses are talking about what this masjid should mean to us. They are speaking about those who we should emulate and try to become. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. That light shines through houses of worship which Allah has ordered to be raised. Many of the books of tafsir mention that the buyut here, the buyut, are referring to the masajid. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala call a masjid a bayt? Why does He say buyut? This gives a feeling of nearness. This gives a feeling of warmth. This gives a feeling of belonging, gives a feeling of shelter. The masajid are not just buildings with walls and carpets. Masjid is the house of Allah. And there's a sense of honor and sanctity that carries. It's a place where hearts find rest, where sins are washed away, and where faith comes to life. For many people, the masjid is the only place that they can go to in the week where they are detoxed from dunya and they can avoid all these distractions. This is all they have. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع. Houses which Allah has ordered to be raised. This raising includes structurally and spiritually. Structurally, by building them, by maintaining them, by keeping them clean, by donating, by protecting their sanctity, and also raising them spiritually, rinsing the masajid of nonsense, of sins, of shouting, of dunya, removing that from our places of worship. A masjid is raised when salah is established. A masjid is raised when Quran is recited. A masjid is raised when knowledge is taught. A masjid is raised when children are brought to the masjid and made to love the masjid. The masjid is raised when you donate and you support. The masjid is raised when the masjid is financially healthy. The masjid is raised when gossip is removed and the egos are left outside. This is how we raise the masajid. And a masjid may be simple in its appearance, but if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is remembered in it frequently and constantly, then that is truly raised. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. Houses of worship which Allah has ordered to be raised and where His name is mentioned. The true life of a masjid is not just the walls and the bricks. The true life of the masjid is the dhikr. A masjid without dhikr is like a body with no soul. And the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala includes salah. It includes Quran. It includes dua. It includes classes, teaching, learning. It includes glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It includes even the shahadas that we heard today. 2 shahadas, as the brother Hussein mentioned, after Jum'ah. One, a brother in his 30s, presumably, and one 13-year-old boy. Which really moved me for a different reason. It moved me because when I was that age, I was in a different world. I was born in Canada, Ottawa specifically. And I grew up in a city called Hamilton, about an hour outside of Toronto. I didn't grow up religious in any way, shape, or form. I think I learned how to pray when I was maybe 15 or 16. It's only after I moved to Toronto afterwards that I started practicing in college. I remember in Hamilton, and this is embarrassing to mention, but I'll mention it. The masjid abandoned us. The masjid had virtually nothing for us. Wallahi, I remember being in high school. Friday nights, we used to go to the church. When I say we, I don't mean just me and my 2 or 3 friends. At least 50 of us at the church every Friday night, because they gave us a basketball court and they would feed us and give us burgers every Friday night. And we would have to listen to their kufr halaqa. There would be some singing and some gospel that we would have to listen to as Muslims, because the masjid had nothing for us. The masjid wallahi guys, there's an entire lost generation there. An entire lost generation of my own friends who are alcoholics, grown men that don't know how to pray, grown men that have no connection to the masjid. Mostly because the masjid did absolutely nothing for us when we needed them the most. This is the role of the masjid. And this isn't, Allah, as the brother came to me earlier, I had no idea that there was going to be a fundraiser today. No idea. It just happened to be a coincidence. But one thing I do want to ask you guys is, if I had a nickel for every time I heard of Muslims buying a church. You hear this often across the US and even Canada. Muslims celebrating, we bought a church. We're going to convert it to a masjid, which is great. But it begs the question, why is the church for sale? Right? Why is the church for sale? What's going to happen to our masajid in 20 years? 50 years? 100 years? Are they going to be as full? Is the masjid going to be sold to some other faith? What's going to happen? What can we do today to ensure that that doesn't happen? This is the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about. And then Allah says, يُسَبِّحُ لَهُ فِيهَا بِالْغُدُوِّ وَالْآصَالِ. He is glorified therein morning and evening, meaning day in and day out. And then Allah says in the next verse, رِجَالٌ men, رِجَالٌ لَا تُلْهِيهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيْعٌ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. It's okay. وَإِقَامِ الصَّلَاةِ وَإِيتَاءِ الزَّكَاةِ. By men who are not distracted by either